Hey guys, how's it going? This is Ironworks MTG, and today we're playing another Jund League for you, again in the replay format, with a pretty sweet list. Today we're playing no Croxes, no Seasoned Pyromancers. We're moving away from that heavy red build, and we're trying to leverage endurance in this list. So we're playing 2 in the main, 2 in the side, and some notable changes here. We're playing a few more green spells, so we've gone down a Ragavan, we've gone down the second Terminate, which I like to play a lot to kill Murktide Regent, and we're going up an Abrupt Decay, we're going up a couple Bloodbraid Elves. I've only been playing 2 or 3 recently, sometimes as little as 0. I don't know if you guys remember the Fury list I played the other day, but yeah, we've been a lot heavier red, but now that we're looking for more green spells, Bloodbraid Elves invited back into the fold, and I think that there's a lot of merit behind Abrupt Decay. I think it's quite playable. It kills Teferi, it kills Chalice, which is seeing a lot of play. It can kill all the threats in Hammer Time. Lurrus is popular, so kills all the threats in the Lurrus decks. But anyway, our mana base is pretty stock. We're trying out 2 Raging Ravine over the second Peatland, just as an additional threat. And I feel like this deck's a little slower and more grindy and control-y, so I think we can accommodate the second Raging Ravine, but you could easily split with another Nurturing Peatland if you so wished. Also, you could play the 4th Ragavan here. One of the main reasons I'm not is because of ticket limit, quite frankly, but also I did want to play another green spell, so we are playing the Bloodbraid Elf on the top end instead. Moving on to the sideboard, we've got some interesting picks here. We've got Necromentia, which in this league was absolutely fantastic. This card was super sweet. I was playing Voidmere, a little unimpressed with it, getting bounced by Brazen Borrower, etc., etc. It stops our Bloodbraid Elf Cascades. It can be quite good. I'm not saying it's bad. I've played it and been happy with it, but I was also really happy to try out this Necromentia, primarily because of the cons that I listed, and someone mentioned this card, so we're bringing it for Whirl. We got the one of Boil, and we've got a couple Fulminator Mage. Just absolutely no respect for Veil of Summer. To be fair, Veil of Summer has been seeing a lot less play recently. All the blue-white lists are splashing like red. They're not splashing green. I'm seeing a bit of a downtick in Tron. And then like all the Channeler decks, all the Hammer Time decks, none of those decks are playing Veil of Summer. So Fulminator Mage, in my opinion, is just the best 3-mana land destruction we could be playing in this archetype. It's just not respecting Veil of Summer, so that's why you don't often see it. But we're going to be trying it out today. Really, really flexing those boomer memories, that nostalgia. But anyway, enough about all that. This is the deck list. I'll leave the list in the description below. If you guys enjoy this content, consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button if you like the video. Hit the dislike button if you don't like the video. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of my lines, what I could have done different, what I could have done better, what you liked. And let's get into it. All right, guys, here we are for Game 1, Match 1. And we decided to keep this hand. It's got a couple Thoughtseizes and a lightning bolt, so we can interact on different axes. We've got the endurance in case the graveyard's relevant, and also it's a clock. It's a little bit debatable. We don't have a potent 2-drop, but I decided that this is keepable in the dark. Our opponent doesn't reveal a companion, so let's try this out and let's see how we do. We're going to be on the play, and double discard can be pretty strong, especially our opponent mulligan to 6, and often when they're not revealing a companion, it's like Tron or blue-white. So we see it's Amulet Titan. Their hands, not super exciting, but unfortunately they have 2 1-drops. So we Thoughtseize the Amulet, pretty easy, because we've got the Lightning Bolt to take care of the Grazer. A little bummed out, though, they get to drop this Grazer and kind of ramp out of land, and there's not really a way we can stop that, but Again, their hand's not extremely exciting, at least yet. And we take it back to our turn. And here, we don't draw a 2-drop, so I decide to play a land here and pass the turn. No rush on the Lightning Bolt, and I'm afraid of the Thoughtseize missing. We're also not under threat of Titan or Dryad. Or sorry, I suppose they could play a Dryad, pardon. But we're not under threat of Titan, which is really what we're primarily afraid of at this point. So I decide to give them a couple more turns to draw so we can maybe actually hit something with this Thoughtseize. We play our land, hold up the Endurance, and wait for the end step to flash it in. Opponent just plays a castle and says go. So we know about 2 cards in their hand. And we go Endurance with no target, just in case we draw a Tarmogoyf. We want it to be as big as possible. And hey, there it is. So we're rewarded for that play. We Thoughtseize. Unfortunately, we miss, but that does mean that our opponent's got nothing going on, which is obviously very good for us. So we're going to get him for 3, put this Goyf on the table, and make our opponent answer us quickly. So on the end step, I decide to bolt because I want to play my highest upside, which is if I draw a Bloodbraid Elf, I want to be able to cast it and just be as mana efficient as possible. And just really put this game away because 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 3, 8, 9, 10, 11 plus a bolt or a K command off a Bloodbraid Elf would put together a win. So we try to play to that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. We Inquisition our opponent again, revealing that they've just kind of flood out this game, fortunately for us. We're going to swing in with our team. We just need to fade one more turn, and we do, and the game is over. So we will see you for the next game. Quick, easy beats here. Unfortunately for our opponent, they had to flood a little bit, and we had the disruption, we had the pressure. All right, guys, we are back for game 2 in match 1 here, and we'll go through the sideboard really quick. You can see here we've cut 1 of our 3 Wrenn and Six. Still want a couple to be able to smooth our draws, but Wrenn and Six not very impressive in the matchup. We cut 1 of our Endurances. We cut an Inquisition, so we're doing a little trimming here and there, and then Fatal Pushes. Generally pretty bad in the matchup. We bring in 2 Necromentia, the couple of Fulminator Mage, obviously pretty good in the matchup, and a single Boil. They don't always have the progression where they play the Dryad, but I like bringing in the Boil just for the free wins. And if they have the Dryad, they almost always run it out. So anyway, our hand is pretty solid. We are lacking a red source, but double discard in a Necromentia is fantastic. So we keep it. Also being on the draw, and it makes it so all of any lands that we draw are gonna be good. And our opponent goes Teleria West, pass the turn, and boom, right off the top, we draw Blackcleave Cliffs. And fire off this Inquisition, our opponent reveals to us Abundant Harvest, Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Explore, and Summoner's Pact. Now this is a little tricky. There's a bit to consider here. Now, one thing to consider is that our opponent does not have a green source, so they can't cast any of their spells. So opponent's end, not particularly great here. I think they're hoping to top deck that green source and really go off. But yeah, there's a bit to consider here. If they hit the green for the Abundant Harvest, then they ensure another land drop. Dryad's just pretty powerful in general. And then the Explorer is also reasonable. I do want to let them keep the Summoner's Pact because we plan on Necromentia. So we take the Abundant Harvest here, and we pass back. Considerable to take the Dryad, but we plan on winning through the Dryad. Okay, we draw Overgrown Tomb. It's pretty decent. So here we swamp, Thoughtseize, hold up that Lightning Bolt. We see a Primeval Titan, but we're going to Necromentia that away, so I believe here. Yeah, we just take the Dryad now. Oh yes, and that was part of my thought process, was I could take the Abundant Harvest now and the Dryad next turn anyway. So opponent's got double Valakut. And here we just crush some dreams, cast this Necromentia, name Primeval Titan. Let's go. We do give our opponent a zombie, but well worth it. And opponent's going to play a Selesnya, Sanctuary that they found off the top. They return Valakut, serve with the zombie token, pass back to us. So we draw Endurance. We're going to shock in the Overgrown Tomb. And just slam some back-to-back Bloodbraid Elves, pardon. Try to end this game. Fire a bolt at that zombie, get him out of the way. And serve with Beebs. Pass back. Here we see opponent has found a Dryad of the Elysian Grove, pardon, which is pretty scary because he can start activating with double Valakut. It can be pretty sketchy. Here, there's a couple of different options. I could have served with the Bloodbraid Elf and saw if he wanted to trade, but I decided I just want to like play to the highest upside, which is to apply as much pressure as possible. If we hit a removal spell, it's great. If we hit a discard spell, it's decent. So play the Bloodbraid Elf, find a Ragavan. Obviously, we can't attack here. And we pass back. Opponent explores, finds an Amulet. So yeah, this game can potentially be a little sketchy with this Dryad in play. We serve with the team. Our opponent does not block, which was a good play by them. They really need this Dryad to win the game. I don't think they have the option to block. We find nothing. We do get in for 6 here. And here I'm going to Inquisition, snap away that Summoner's Pact, pardon, and we find that our opponent has a Hive Mind. And opponent plays Sunhome, and that's going to be that because we get to flash in this Endurance, and we have Lightning Bolt. So there's just nothing they can do. They cast this Hive Mind. We bolt in response to it to ensure that they don't bolt us. With the copied bolt, we got Endurance, but our opponent has seen enough, so they scoop it, and that's an easy 2-0 against Amulet. Love seeing it, love it, taking down those big mana decks. Yeah, we'll see you for the next match. All right, guys, here we are for another match, and we get to be on the play, and our hand looks pretty sweet. We've got Ragavan into Wrenn into Grist. We've got Thoughtseize, we've got Lightning Bolt for different points of interaction. Yeah, hand looks awesome. We get to be on the play, so very easy keep here. Our opponent does not reveal a companion, and we're just gonna take the most proactive play we can make, really capitalize on being on the play, and put this Ragavan into play. Make our opponent answer us. Opponent plays Polluted Delta and passes the turn. Pretty interesting. So first thing we do, just serve with this Ragavan, see if our opponent's got the answer. And it looks like they do. This is looking like a Lightning Bolt. They fetch for a Steam Vents. And there it is. Ragavan bites the dust. So here we go, Raging Ravine. And I decide to Thoughtseize. Try to clear the hand of counter magic to land our Wrenn and Six. So we see Counterspell, Bolt, Thought Scour. Yeah, we take the counterspell here, and we're going to try to land our Wrenn and Six. Interestingly enough, we've got Wrenn and Six and Tarmogoyf. These Lightning Bolt-esque decks often have a little bit of trouble dealing with Tarmogoyf, so there's a bit to think about here. He can double bolt either threat. I decide if my opponent's going to double bolt our Wrenn and Six. If we get to pick up a land and eat 2 Lightning Bolts, that's a good enough use of the Wrenn and Six, and the Tarmogoyf can clock later. If we get to untap with the Wrenn and Six, that's also fine. So, opponent's going to, on the end step, Thought Scour. They do not do the double bolt thing, which is, again, fine. They Thought Scour themselves, and they mull over a Murktide Regent, which is great for us. I will take it. And to our great surprise, I didn't play around this at all. Opponent slams a Blood Moon. Feels bad, so I have to decide between fetching for the forest and the swamp. I do choose the forest with the presence of Tarmogoyf here. And also we have 2 swamps, so pick up our land, play a Tarmogoyf. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these decks do have a lot of trouble dealing with Tarmogoyf. They usually have to spend 2 spells. So pick up a land, serve with the Goyf, see what happens. Our opponent goes Prismari Command, make a treasure, deal 2 to the Goyf, and then they're going to finish the Goyf off with Lightning Bolt. So a little unfortunate, but the Goyf did eat 2 spells, so they're going to feed a Lightning Bolt to the Wrenn and Six, and they're going to Snap Bolt, finishing it off. I believe here I just bolt for the sake of mana efficiency. Find a Raging Ravine and pass the turn. We're just going to fast forward through our opponent's turn. We do find a Tarmogoyf, which is obviously excellent. We can use this to win the game. Pass back to the opponent, and there's a lot of back and forth in this game here. But we got the goods. We got the Tarmogoyf beats. Our opponent is failing to find a Murktide Regent for another turn. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is just, or what we're hoping for rather, is to be able to beat down before that Murktide Regent comes, or find that swamp at least before it comes. Opponent Thought Scours themselves, mulling over another Murktide Regent, which is excellent for us. It's looking real good. This Tarmogoyf connects for the 1. I decide I don't go for this bolt. I'm like, alright, I am not casting this bolt until my opponent's 2nd blue source is down. Want to play around Counterspell. There's no rush. Here we just shove with this Tarmogoyf. You see the opponent play Snapcaster Mage. They target the command. So here they're going to chump the Goyf. And again, we're just being very patient. Move T9 step, and can the opponent resist casting this Prismari command? No, they cannot. So with the Prismari command on the stack, we bolt them. Hope that they don't have Force Negation, but these decks tend to not play it anymore, and we get them. So we get to steal game 1 from under that Blood Moon. This is definitely a way that we can lose a game 1. Being on, just not playing around this Blood Moon at all, not having it on our radar. This is a more control-y version of the Murktide decks. It's not playing Dragon's Rage Channeler, etc., etc. And yeah, we'll see you for the next game. All right, guys, here we are for game 2, match 2, and here we've got the sideboard. We've cut 2 push, the bolt. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, 2 push on the bolt. We bring in a boil, the Klothys. I think that they're going to have a lot of trouble dealing with Klothys. The boil, the Klothys, and what was the last card? And another endurance to deal with Murktide Regent. So this hand looks pretty solid. We do decide to keep it. We are on the draw, and our opponent leads with Flooded Strand. All right, here we're just going to lead with Inquisition. We take a Consider and pass the turn. Opponent with a pretty redundant hand, just a bunch of cantrips. Not much to think about there. I take the Consider primarily because maybe there's some thought to taking Thought Scour, but I figure the Consider is the non-redundant piece, so when I'm unsure. Thought Scour the island. Play the island, they pass the turn. Here we just go land go. Unfortunately, we don't have a 2-drop to play. It'd be really solid there if we top deck Tarmogoyf for Wrenn and Six, but now we do have to keep Blood Moon in mind. So we're going to hold this fetch up for all eternity until we absolutely have to crack it. Find an Overgrown Tomb, and it is time. So I decided to grab a swamp here. There's a little bit of debate in chat about that, but we've got more black spells. We've got K command to buy stuff back. The forest would be nice for Bloodbraid Elf purposes, because Bloodbraid Elf is 2 spells, but we don't know what that spell is going to be. Anyway, our Grist gets Aether Gust, pardon. I do decide to put it on the bottom. But it's got a second island, and they do not have a Blood Moon. Here I decided to just go for the Bloodbraid Elf. Most mana efficient play. And we find Endurance, which is fantastic. We're going to both put some pressure on the opponent and also potentially relieve the threat of Murktide Regent, but opponent does have Snappy. So Snap's going to counter target spell, hitting our Endurance. And here I decide to offer the trade for the Snapcaster Mage, simply because I would like the board to be clear in case they do play a Murktide Regent, so Liliana can Edict it. Opponent does not take the trade, swings back. We swing again. They've got a Bolt for the Bloodbraid. We draw land, so this is pretty decent. I decide to just hold up here. I've got Endurance and Terminate. So I'm going to lead with this Endurance to clear the board and hold up Terminate. So the Endurance does resolve. Definitely doing its job. Decide to hold on to this Terminate and serve with the Endurance. Tarmogoyf, excellent top deck. Sort of speaking out of order. We'll try not to do that. So anyway, second main phase. Cast our Tarmogoyf. And I decide once again to hold up Terminate and Kolaghan's command. The K command can pick up the Bloodbraid Elf or the second Endurance. If our opponent Thought Scours, we'll be more tempted to pick up the Endurance, but they don't, so we just pick up, shock the Snapcaster, pick up the Bloodbraid Elf. We draw Inquisition, which is nice because it's going to let us very efficiently use our mana. Our opponent's just got a bunch of lands, so. And they scoop up before we show them Bloodbraid Elf, but yeah, pretty easy win there. Opponent just kind of flooded at the wrong time. Their Thought Scours didn't serve them well, and yeah, we get to run away with those matches from Blue Moon. I think that's a generally good matchup because they have such a hard time dealing with our threats. But Murktide Regent brings a lot to this deck, so I think this is a deck people are going to see a lot. Anyway, we'll see you in the next match. All right, guys, here we are for Game 1, Match 3 against Spicy Chicken 420. And that's right, Spicy Chicken 420. And our hands, all right. We decide to keep. We've got a few different points of interaction. Unfortunately, no threat, but it's the kind of hand that can get there. It can buy some time. We shock, Thoughtseize, and unfortunately reveal a bunch of burn spells and some aggressive threats. So yeah, we've got Thoughtseize here. I do take the Boros Charm. I leave him with the Goblin Guide and the Swift Spear because we've got Lightning Bolt to answer. Just make sure our bolts are as relevant as possible. Our opponent's gonna crack that Arid Mesa and lead on a Goblin Guide, which is the optimal burn play. We hit Wooded. They give us a Wooded Foothills, which is actually quite good for us because now we can grab a mountain. I debate a little bit about what I want to do here. If I want to bolt this Goblin Guide or play the Goyf. The only thing is that the Goyf will trade for the creature and the burn spell. I decided that I'm not okay with that, or sorry, I do play the Goyf. Yes. If I'm going to trade, I mean, soaking 5 damage is fine. So we play the Goyf, pass back to the opponent, and they're going to play a Swift Spear. They're going to Lava Spike us. And they send in the Goblin Guide and the Swift Spear. So here we decide we're going to block this Goblin Guide. Inquisition the opponent. They've got Lightning Helix, Rift Bolt, and Skull Crack. So we have no way of gaining life. We just take the Lightning Helix. Yeah, we have no way of gaining life in this in the main board. So Helix, bolt the Swift Spear, attack, play the Verdant and pass the turn. One's going to suspend their Rift Bolt, and they find another Goblin Guide off the top, unfortunately. Here I decide to bolt the guide here. It's just pretty free. We're fetching anyway, we're taking 2 anyway, we may as well bolt this Goblin Guide. Alright, so Abrupt Decay is an okay draw. We take that last burn spell out of their hand, deal 2 damage to them, and we just gotta start trying to win this game. So we swing with the Tarmogoyf, hoping to like just draw like something next turn. So this is down to the wire. We really need them to top deck poorly. They Rift Bolt us, putting us to 2. Most things kill us. Opponent suspends another Rift Bolt, so Ragavan gets there, Lightning Bolt gets there, Kolaghan's Command gets there. We've got lots of live draws. We just need it right now. And boom, there he is, the Monkey Man to the rescue. So we get to win 4 Xaxes. Feels really good. That was insanely close. These matchups often come down to the wire like this, where it's like, just have to top decks, right? It's like either they have it on top or we have it on top, and you're often at this incredibly low life total within bolt range at the end of the game. But yes, we get to snag that game thanks to the monkey, and moving on to the next match. Or game, rather. Alright guys, we are back for Game 2, Match 3, and we have brought in another Endurance, our Klothys, and our 2 Brutalities. We've cut our Thoughtseizes. They deal damage to us. They are bad. Our Grist is kind of slow. Making a 1-1 on 3 is probably not very good, and most of our threats we don't want to sacrifice in this matchup. So we cut the Grist, and we cut a Wrenn and Six. Wrenn is also pretty slow. The ping doesn't kill anything, so... Anyway, this hand looks fine. We decide to keep. It can stave off some early aggression, and Tarmogoyf is one of the best cards in the matchup. We just really hope to draw a Klothys or a Brutality to really finish this hand off. And our opponent's got a Swift Spear on 1. Draw Swamp off the top. Not terrible. Now we get to painlessly kill this Swift Spear. Opponent's got an Eidolon of the Great Revel. I do let it resolve. We're just going to take 1 off this Swift Spear and 2 off the Eidolon trigger. We just got to kill this Eidolon. That's also going to make Goyf extra thick. So here we have to fetch for Forest. Play our big Goyf and pass the turn. Want to play Sunbay Canyon, and they suspend Rift Bolt, and they've got another Eidolon for us. Pretty unfortunate. We draw an Abrupt Decay. So lots to think about here. Lots to think about. I end up serving with the Tarmogoyf. I want to be able to pressure the opponent as much as possible, and we are going to be forced to kill something. So this Rift Bolt's going to come off suspend, dealing 2 to them. And really, I think on the draw, our best bet is to like race here without a way to gain life. Our Goyf gets thicker. They Lava Spike pre-combat. So this is kind of what we want to some extent. Them casting their spells before we cast ours. So here I thought about this a lot. Is it better to shock myself, play the Endurance, then we take 3-5 to do that? We block the Eidolon. The Swiss Spear connects, bringing us to 2. We hit back for 8. If we draw a Bolt or something, we get to win the game. We could also do well off our Bloodbraid in that regard. But they've got 2 cards in hand. So yeah, my idea here is that if I flash in the Endurance, I can crack back for lethal, but then we die to literally everything in the deck. So to play around more cards, I decide to play a little more conservatively, and we just Abrupt Decay. And we do target the Eidolon because we need to be able to cast some spells on our turn. Or sorry, we hit the Swift Spear. Beg my pardon. My apologies. We hit the Swift Spear because we can cast Bloodbraid Elf and not cast the spell if we decide that we don't want to, which we probably will. But none of this matters because our opponent just has Boros Charm anyway. So nothing mattered. Yeah, that's game 2 for you. Opponent had a pretty good draw. He had the aggressive threats. He had burn spells where he needed them. And yeah, we lose to burn in game 2. And we'll move on to game 3. As we are back for game 3. And we've changed nothing about our sideboard. Not really much to do there. I do decide to keep. We've got a turn 1 Ragavan into a turn 2 Liliana. And also Ragavan is quite good against burn, quite frankly. If it turns over, it often turns over spells that we can cast. We can cast their Lightning Helixes and their Goblin Guides, etc., etc. We can use their bolts and stuff to kill their threats. So definitely, this was probably the best thing that could have happened. Swift Spear dealing 1 to us on turn 1, no big deal. We get to connect with the Ragavan. And then see what we hit. And we hit a real heater. They reveal Searing Blaze. So here we play a Raging Ravine, chance to play our tapped land, and we get to Searing Blaze their Monastery Swift Spear. Obviously feels great. We are winning the race, and next turn we can Edict a creature, or we can uptick our Lily or play a Goyf. So yeah, it all looks great. I do believe I decide to play the Tarmogoyf, and that gives us an opportunity to fetch painlessly here. Lily Edicting is kind of like the best case for it in a lot of cases. So our opponent attacks with Swift Spear. I decided, yes, I'll block. I'm down to trade the Goyf for 2 cards, especially with Liliana around. Unfortunately, our opponent had it exactly Searing Blaze, which was the best thing they could have had in this window, but it is what it is. Tarmogoyf goes down, trades for that Swift Spear, and here we just play our Lily, uptick it, and hope chewing up their hand is good enough without a clock in play. We do have this Raging Ravine, but asking it to cross the line against burn can be asking a lot. But again, Lily's here to back it up and eat some burn spells. We draw an Endurance, uptick the Lily, opponent bolts, and Lightning Helixes us in response. Pretty spicy, pretty rude. Here I play this land, and I decide I'm going to flash in the Endurance and then just start swinging, hoping it's good enough. We need our opponent to brick at least a little bit here. We're at 6. They do cycle their Sunbait Canyon and just simply play a land and pass the turn. So this Endurance is going to hit the board, and they're not playing Lyris. Not sure why they're not playing Lyris, but they're not playing Lyris. And so with that in mind, we do no targets. So then if we draw a Goyf, it can be as big as possible. Decay's not a terrible draw, but we are going to just discard here. They Skullcrack us, putting us to 3. Ultra sketchy, so we just boot up the Ravine here. We're not going to lose to a hasty creature. We're going to lose to a burn spell anyway, so in go the boys. The Ravine gets bigger. Another Swift Spear. Opponent's going to serve for 1, attacking us. They, which is definitely correct. They don't really care about the Lily alting here, because they just keep whatever pile. They keep 2 lands basically and a Swift Spear. We draw a Lightning Bolt here. Here I say, let's edict you. And we decide to animate the ravine and only swing at the ravine. We can keep the endurance back to block a hasty threat. And then this way the ravine is... and we talked about this line quite a bit, actually. There was a lot to think about there. This wasn't a fast process. But yeah, they go to 6. We have endurance to block a creature, and we just have to fade a burn spell. They can draw lands, they can draw creatures, they can draw just about anything, just not a burn spell. Which again, it breaks down these top decks. Look at this, we're at 2. We're presenting lethal. Opponent, do you have it? And they do not. They play a Goblin Guide, and that's going to be that. We're going to edict. We're going to boot up this ravine, and we're going to swing for lethal. And yeah, there you go. We get to beat burn with our Jund deck. Jund not particularly well positioned against burn these days, but and we didn't gain life once that game. We just put that pressure on that whole match. We did not gain 1 point of life. We just put the pressure on, and it was good enough. Raging Ravine pulling through here. It's not often that you see that anymore, but there it is. There it is, guys. And we'll see you in the next match. Moving in to match 4. And yep, feels good. All right, guys, here we are for match 4, game 1. And we're going to be fighting the Handsome Man. And this hand's a little clunky. Okay, this hand's a little clunky. We decide to keep, and we're heavily rewarded. Our opponent mulls to 5, so we're a little bit worried about Tron here, but again, in the dark, I'll keep anything functional, quite frankly. You just get punished so hard for mulliganing in this deck sometimes. So anyway, we Thoughtseize our opponent. They reveal Archmage's Charm, Inquisition, Consider. I am not considering Consider, but I'm considering Archmage's Charm and Inquisition. I do take the Inquisition to protect our Liliana. I think that's the best thing we could do is land this Liliana when our opponent mulls to 5 like that. I play River of Tears and pass the turn. Tarmogoyf is a fantastic draw. So here we're going to shock in an Overgrown Tomb. So if we draw another land, we can cast our Lily. And we play a 2/3 Goyf. So very curious as to what our opponent's on. They're on some sort of blue-black variant. They're going to consider here, mulling over Consider. And we know about Archmage's Charm here. So, Monkey, not bad. I do decide to dash in Monkey, because starting next turn, he'll be able to steal it with the Archmage's Charm. So we dash in our Monkey. We find a Fatal Push. We decide not to push either one of our creatures, and we pass back. Opponent hits our 3rd land drop. Sorry, a little bit of issue with the replay client here. Here we go. We're back. And I thought this move was kind of weird. I believe our opponent main phases Archmage's Charm here. Oh, no, sorry. They find a Murktide Regent, which is really good for us, actually. We get to downtick on this Murktide Regent. So no cares in the world. We downtick. We've got our Lily in under that Archmage's Charm, which is fantastic. Here we're going to discard our Lightning Bolt. Want to keep these lands around. But yeah, that last turn was awesome. The fact that we got to deal with a Murktide with Lily and get under the Archmage's Charm is great. Tarmogoyf doing lots of work here, and I decide we're just going to hold up Endurance. This opponent's going to draw 2 cards. And I decide I'm just going to Endurance now. Play around Counter Magic. I want to have this 2nd threat down. And also, I think that getting rid of those 3 cards can be pretty relevant. It could make the difference between a whole turn of them having Murktide Regent. That's right. So that's the window where they main phased Archmage's Charm on that turn. And they pass back to us. We will discard our Monkey. And here we just swing for lethal, see if they got it. And they don't. They do not have Fatal Push. Can this even make Fatal Push? Add blue if you played a land. So no, they wouldn't have been able to cast it regardless. But anyway, we take that game 1. And huge misplay by our opponent, by the way. When they discard this Inverter of Truth. So now we know what we're up against. This is the Inverter of Truth combo. This is the first time I've played against this deck, but basically it says when it enters the battlefield, you exile all cards from your library face down, and then you take your graveyard and you put it in your library. Then they try to win with either Thassa's Oracle, or Jace Memory, Jace something Memory. It says you win the game if you have no cards in your library. So anyway, that's game 1, and we'll move on to game 2. Alright guys, here we are for game 2, and as you can see here, we've cut our Fatal Pushes, we've cut a couple of our Lightning Bolts, not all of them, and we've cut our Abrupt Decay. I don't think Abrupt Decay is going to hit anything. Fatal Push is probably not going to hit anything. I debated a little bit about the Fulminator Mages and the Collective Brutalities, etc., but ultimately I didn't bring them in. We brought in 2 Necromentia, a couple of Endurance, and of course our awesome spicy 1 of Boil. And see how we do here. So our hand is, it's got Necromentia, but our lands were a little too awkward, so we mulligan. I decide this hand is fine. Endurance goes a little bit away, a little bit of ways in this deck. I do debate a little bit about what we're gonna mulligan, put at the bottom. I decide to put Cake Man on the bottom. The one consideration there is that we don't have double black for Liliana, but I think Liliana's just good enough in the matchup that or at least so much better in the matchup than Cake Man that I'm willing to take that risk. So here's a Bloodstained Mire, pass the turn. I think turn 2 Tarmogoyf, turn 3 Endurance is probably pretty reasonable against this deck. And yeah, the Endurance really messes with their plan, because when they go to do the Thassa's Oracle thing, we just take their graveyard and put it back into their deck. So opponent's got the push for our Tarmogoyf. They're going to play Shelldock Isle, so that's another thing we discussed in the chat there. If we go to a game 3, we'll probably bring in Fulminator Mage now that we've seen Shelldock Isle. Here I decide to play around the counter magic and hold up this Endurance. I'm flashing the Endurance here and get some pressure going. We do need to win the game, and this does slow down a Murktide region at least a bit. We've also got Terminate and Liliana to deal with Murktide, so really the only thing we have to worry about is losing a combo, and the best way to beat the combo is by killing our opponent as fast as possible. So that clock's important. We put Lily on the stack. They've got Counterspell, unfortunately. It seemed pretty obvious that they would have had either Counterspell or Archmage's Charm, but I was pretty happy to trade with an Archmage's Charm. And just passing the turn and doing nothing probably isn't worth it. Probably feels a little bad, so we took that risk. Anyway, we draw Wrenn and Six for turn, attack with Endurance. And Wrenn and Six plus Peatland's kind of nice. So play this Wrenn, pick up our fetch land, play our Peatland, hold up our Terminate, pass the turn to the opponent. So they're going to draw 2 cards instead of countering Wrenn with that Archmage's Charm, which is fine because they have not presented a win condition yet. We have to take our cycle our Nurturing Peatland, draw Tarmogoyf. Then we're going to use Wrenn to pick it back up, replay it, send Endurance. Our opponent cracks their fetch land. And they do have a Fatal Push, which is fine. Better on the Endurance than the Tarmogoyf. So put another threat on the board, pass back. Our opponent's got another Archmage's Charm, so they keep that card draw flowing. Pretty scary, to be honest. They crack Delta. And here we see Inverter of Truth. So they're gonna they're going to do the thing. So now they've got very few cards in their library, but 8 cards in their library is actually quite a few. There's fail rate there, so we're going to cycle our Nurturing Peatland, draw a card, find another Goyf. Opponent activates that Shellduck Isle. So here I'm kind of scared. What's going to happen, I wonder. And they've just got Inquisition, which we're pretty alright with. I decide, alright, we've got to terminate this inverter now. It's going to grow our Goyf, and that Inquisition gets to eat our other Tarmogoyf, but slowing the clock by a turn, but we attack with the Goyf, and right there we were looking for Thoughtseize to take like Jace or Thassa or something. We don't find it, but we find Necromentia. Next turn we've got Lethal between Goyf and Wrenn and Six. And if they answer the Goyf, we Necromentia for probably Thassa's Oracle, although now they've got Jace. And our opponent doesn't have a way to answer the Tarmogoyf, it would seem. So Tarmogoyf plus Wrenn and Six is lethal, and our opponent scoops up. And yeah, we are 4-0, playing for the 5-0. And some interesting matchups here. I don't know how well positioned this deck is, but I'm happy to showcase it because it's not one that you see often, and it's not one I've played against before, but it seems like a cool deck. I think Murktide gives it another angle of attack, and yeah, we'll see you for the next match. Alright guys, here we are for the last match of our league, playing for the 5-0, and this hand's solid. We've got Ragavan into Wrenn and Six or Grist. Opponents on the play, they're going to lead Island, Serum Visions. So, Island, Serum Visions, I immediately called Storm on this one. So Endurance, pretty good against Storm. Ragavan into Tarmogoyf, nice progression in respects to clock. So, opponent plays Sleight of Hand, second Island, Sleight of Hand. So, Storm confirmed, and we get in for 2 here. We see an Echoing Truths, which obviously we're not going to cast. And here we just get this Goyf down. Clock being the most important thing. So opponent's got Ideas Unbound. So this is Twiddle Storm. Ideas Unbound reads, draw 3 cards, discard 3 cards. Beginning of your next end step, but there's not going to be a next end step. Because if they untap their Lotus Field, they are very, very likely to win the game. Because all their cards just draw cards and untap things. So they're going to play Sleight of Hand, and they pass back to us. So they have to discard 3 cards off this Ideas Unbound. Discard Shivan Reef, Island. We find Decay command. We Lightning Bolt the opponent for the sake of growing our Tarmogoyf. Find a Psychic Puppetry, and we're just going to put another Tarmogoyf into play because we need to win the game. And between 2 Goyfs, the Ragavan, and the Kolaghan's command, we can do it. And then, unfortunately... Alright, so they find their Lotus Field. They float 3. The Ideas Unbound. So this is looking kind of grim. So opponent doing their thing, making lots of mana. And then I apologize to everyone watching this video. We mega punt. They cast Past in Flames, and here I'm excited. I'm like, alright, we can probably stop our opponent from winning the game and make them fizzle. I'm like, we're going to pitch this Grist to the Endurance, play the Endurance, and then we fucking misclick. And I don't target the opponent. Just mega punt, Endurance, no target, Past in Flames resolves, and yeah, super unfortunate way to lose a game of Magic, but at this point I'm like, alright, let's just see if we can learn anything about this deck, because it's not something we see every day. How are they going to win the game? What else do they have in their deck? This isn't like an attempt to run out their clock or anything. I'm like genuinely just seeing how our opponent kills us, because it couldn't hurt. You know, you see a twiddle, and there's a grape shot, so we don't get to see any more of the deck. That's that. I don't know for certain that had the endurance resolved, we would have won that game. Our opponent claims here, or sorry, I guess in the next match they discussed with us that they probably still could have won, but anyway. Chance we could have stopped the opponent. Unfortunate misclick. Guess we'll never know. Moving on to the next game. All right, guys, here we are for the next game, and we've cut a couple Fatal Push, Terminate, all pretty obvious. Decide to keep in our Abrupt Decay in case they bring in like Aria Flame or something. We've also cut Grist, and we cut all of our Bloodbraid Elves and the Wrenn and Six, so lots of board outs. I cut the Bloodbraid Elves because honestly, it feels like there's just not going to be an opportunity to tap out for Bloodbraid Elf in this matchup. We just need to hold up some sort of interaction. Bring in the other two Endurance, the Necromentia, the Collective Brutality, so as much hand disruption as we can muster, our one of Boil, and that's it. Oh, and our single copy of Engineer Explosives. Oh, and our spell bombs. So big transformational sideboard plan here. A lot of threats out, a lot of disruption in, a lot of this removal dead. And this hand is an absolute heater. Ragavan into Necromentia is exactly what we want to see. We need to just get under that Lotus Field, and I'm not sure that our opponent can win without it. So opponent plays Island, cycle Sandbar, and honestly, GG's. We smack with Monkey. And the power of Monkey, we get turn 2 Necromentia, name Lotus Field, and take a look at our opponent's deck here. Our opponent clicked out really fast. They didn't want us to, they auto-scoop here. But anyway, we can see what our opponent's got going on here. They've got Empty the Warrants as another way to win the game, and Grape Shot. So between Empty and Grape Shot, they've only got 2 ways to win the game. And yeah, our opponent scoops immediately. Doesn't even let us, as soon as we name Lotus Field correctly. And yeah, easy clap next game. Guys, here we are for the next game. We have changed nothing about our sideboard, and unfortunately, we do have to mulligan this hand. We've got a 1-lander. It's only a mountain, so we mulligan. Here's another 1-lander, but it's Inquisition, Ragavan, Boil. So we do decide to keep. There's lots of hand disruption here. Ragavan can ramp us. But yeah, Inquisition, Collective Brutality. We just hope that Ragavan guts us there. They have lots of cantrips too that we can cast to smooth our draws. And we top deck that Necromentia. Hell yeah. I remember being really excited about this. Do we get to meme our opponent 2 games in a row? No idea. We just need to draw the land here, please. And we do not. So we attack with the Ragavan. This game goes on way more turns than I'm comfortable. So here we get the treasure token, and we're going to lead with this Inquisition. Opponent's going to Spell Pierce our Inquisition. That is fine. So now I'm like, do I connect next turn and cast Necromentia? I'm getting a little bit worried, so I decide I'm just going to Thoughtseize here because they were willing to protect something with that Spell Pierce. So we see Empty the Warrens, Ideas Unbound, Psychic, Puppetry. We just take that Empty. It's a way of winning the game. It's their other win con, so they play a Shivan Reef. And they cast this, or cycle this Vizier of Tumbling Sands that they've top decked. Cast Serum Visions. And again, we fail to find that land. Huge bummer. We make a treasure token, just cast Spellbomb past turn. Try to make ourselves, as we hold on to the Spellbomb for a while. We attack with Ragavan, and opponents got the Echoing Truth, so tilting. It's like, feel like every turn we're getting robbed here. So we do Inquisition, and we take that Ideas Unbound. So they've got Echoing Truth and the Psychic Puppetry left. The Echoing Truth's like a little annoying, but we gotta take that Ideas Unbound because we just don't want our opponent putting anything together. We find a second Necromentia. What a slap in the face, right? So opponent's gonna Echoing Truth the Ragavan. We'll replay the Ragavan. And just like every turn, hope to hit that second land. Opponent doing stuff, cycling, splicing onto Arcane, just looking to put something together. Us just looking to draw that second land. They're going to reach through Mist, so they tap our Ragavan. We find Raging Ravine tapped, which is fine, because we couldn't attack with the Ragavan this turn anyway. Would have been nice to draw an untapped land, though, to cast this Collective Brutality, but hey, I'll take it at this rate. And unfortunately, our opponent found the Lotus Field, but we know that they only have Empty the Warrants and Grape Shot as win conditions. So we're going to Spellbomb them, just looking for something. They do tap our Ragavan, and here we're just going to cast Collective Brutality. We decide to use 2 modes, because we're not going to cast all these spells. We're never going to cast the Boil anyway, so yeah, we take that last card out of their hand, and what that does for us is them being on no cards is going to make it very difficult to actually go off with this Lotus Field, unless they find exactly, my goodness, the one that says draw 3, and then at the end of the turn discard 3. But they don't. We draw our mountain. We pray that Ragavan connects, and he does. Here we fire off this Necromentia and reveal 2 Grape Shots. And if we take a look at what we've got going on here, opponent's got no way to win. They've got to draw exactly Past in Flames, and they don't have a red source other than this Shivan Reef. So it's looking pretty grim for the opponent. And actually, sorry, we exiled this Empty the Warrens with the Nihil Spellbomb. So our opponent literally has no way to win. And yeah, we're discussing this in chat. I say GG. They say I think so. I say I think so too. And that's it. Our opponent spins their wheels a little and then scoops up, and boom, we get the 5-0, and feels good. But yeah, super exciting game. I've never actually played against Twiddlestorm either, at least not on an MTGO. Played against it in my LGS once. But yeah, some interesting matchups. I really like Endurance. I think Endurance is really sweet. And happy to showcase it here in this 5-0 replay. If you guys enjoy this content, consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, take care and peace.